I haven't had a personal bank account for 13 years. So I'm going to talk about money. Hey, I'm Father Mark Mary with the Franciscan Friars of the Renewal, and this is Ascension Presents. We're going to talk about money. We're going to have some show and tell, some practical stuff. Here's the situation. I'm a Franciscan, which means two things. Number one, I don't have any money. Like, I don't have personal money. We don't really spend money. We live simply. Number two, in the rule from St. Francis of the Brothers, it's just this reminder that we're not to look down upon those who wear nice food, wear nice clothes, wear nice food, eat nice clothes, wear nice clothes, eat nice food. So I'm going to try and stay in that spirit, because there's just this part of this is a reality of we will live very simply, and when we're out with other people, sometimes people's spending habits, like wasting food, things like that, they're hard for me to wrestle and reconcile with. So it just had me thinking, and so I'm just going to talk a little bit about money, and there's going to be two parts of the video. One is essentially like teaching you how to fish, and then one is giving you some fish, so some resources for your ongoing kind of discernment and study if you're interested, and then some just very practical applications right off the bat. And why we're talking about this, right, is money's not just like a dirty thing, right? Like, the love of money is condemned, certainly, but like the Friars, our medical center in Honduras, which gives free care to the poorest of the poor, right? Like, it's only made possible through, like, we need money, or the orphanage we're helping to kind of run, it needs money. Like, so many of our, like, putting food on your table, etc., right? So the money's part of life, but at the same time, we want to keep our spending habits and our relationship with money in the context of the whole world, where we know so many people are still struggling and really suffering and even starving, but we also have the technology and the globalization to actually help them, right? And so we just want to keep all of this in context. For those of you who are like interested in it and willing to do a little research, I'm going to offer 3 resources, 3 books, which talk about it. And they're going to kind of be on different parts of the spectrum. The first one, which is like the more kind of hardcore one, is by one of my favorite contemporary spiritual authors, Father Thomas Dubay. Father Thomas Dubay wrote a book called Happy Are You Poor? And Father Dubay, in his book, really looking at the Gospels and the example of Christ and the Church, and again, the example of the saint and the situation of the world, really proposes a fairly challenging approach to this, right? And so certainly if you're really young and fired up about things, and you want to read it, which is kind of like, if you're young and fired up, you're going to love the book. I would recommend, before making any like major life changes, at least bouncing it off like a priest, a spiritual mentor, a parent. But it sets the bar pretty high. I think it's a really good resource, and a lot of people have found it to be very fruitful. Now, on the other end, which is really fascinating to me, is a book that probably most of you haven't heard of. It's not as popular in like Catholic spaces, called What Your Money Means. What Your Money Means and How to Use It Well. Green, probably because of money. Clever. All right. And it's by Frank Hanna, and it has reviews, recommendations on the back from Thomas Monahan, the Domino's guy, right, who became a big Catholic philanthropist, and also retired Archbishop Charles Chaput. So Frank Hanna's a Catholic guy, really killed it in business, made a lot of money, also just has used that money really well to fund different movements in the church, okay? And one of the interesting things about it, and why this book is really interesting, is here's a man who's very, very financially successful, but who's Catholic and is willing to really look at and wrestle with questions or comments proposed like from some of the saints. Like, you know, if you have like more than you need and you don't give it to the poor, like, you're stealing from the poor. And he takes a really honest look at this, and wrestles with and establishes some principles. And so it's a different mindset than Father Dubay. He's going to ask some different questions. Some of his resolutions might be a little bit different. But if you want to look at like a very, very successful business person in the world who's wrestling with these questions, what your money means and how to use it well, I think it's like a really, really great resource that isn't nearly as well known as it should be. And then thirdly, and this is the weird part, all right, bear with me, is Habits for Holiness. The author's a little goofy, but there's a chapter in it that deals with it. And I would say it's kind of in the middle between Happy Are You Poor and What Your Money Means, from Father Dubay and Mr. Frank Hanna. But it's very small and very like concrete, and I really just try to kind of like use this principle of contentment and give some tools, if you will, for ongoing discernment and application. All right, so what your money means: happy are you poor, habits for holiness. Now let's go to just some real practical things. One area in which a lot of people are kind of overspending or spending frivolously or unintentionally, which we really got to try and avoid in the world today, again, where money can go so far in helping people, like with the charity Mary's Meals. So one thing with online shopping that I'd really encourage you to do for things that are non-essentials, have it sit in your little cart for ideally 48 hours or at least 24 hours. If you need diapers or formula or whatever for your babies, okay, you can just get that right away. But a lot of times you're trying to redecorate your room or your new dorm room, or you're looking at video game stuff or workout stuff or whatever, and you kind of get in there and you're looking at it. It's fun to look at stuff and you get excited and you watch the video, and maybe you go to YouTube and read some reviews. You get all your passions all sort of fired up, right? And you get all excited. Put it in your cart and give it 24, 48 hours, and then go look at it again and see now, okay, now that you've allowed those sort of emotions and the passions and all that, those desires to kind of be tempered, do you still want it? Is it still worth the money? Is it still something you really need? Is it really a good way to spend your resources? If you make the judgment, yeah, okay, cool, go for it. Because I really think that so much of how things are being sold online really is geared towards getting, kind of manipulating you to get really excited and to buy as easy as possible, as quick as possible. And don't be played by the game. Put it in your cart, go back and review it. Also, it's just, you might, it's kind of like a common thing in religious life where maybe they get a letter from a friend or somebody like that, and they just let it sit for 24 hours, and then you go open it the next day, not right when you get it. And even that, it's just a good little sacrifice, a good little practice of patience, and a good way to make sure that we are living ordered and well-directed and intentional lives. Number 2 is a little bit creative. I would propose putting on yourself some sort of what I'll call a poor tax. So you figure out whatever the percentage or the breakdown is, but say it's 10% of every dollar I spend that's just on me or not on essential items, I'm going to also allocate to give to the poor. So if I'm going to spend $100 on something, I have to also set aside $10 that I'm going to give to some sort of charity. So you got to have some sort of charity, right, already queued up where you can give easily. Again, I'll drop it again. Mary's Meals is an awesome place to do this. What I like about it is this, primarily because it allows us to practice this Galatians 2:10 thing of always being mindful of the poor. In our spending and what we're doing, we're never just doing it in a vacuum. We're never just doing it in the context of our own maybe very comfortable space, which many of us live in. But we want to keep, especially as Christians and as Catholics, we want to keep in context all of the situation of the whole world. So some sort of tax for yourself, you can do it as a family, okay, for every, and again, I think 10%, 5%, 20%, however you want to do it. It's just a really good principle, a way to be mindful of the poor, and a way to actually continue to help the poor. And thirdly, it's just really makes a lot of sense. When you're going shopping, before you go in the store, have a list. I know it's a discipline. I know it's not necessarily easy. I know we like to go into real stores, brick and mortar stores, and kind of look around and get inspired and be creative. But again, it's just, they know what they're doing and they know how to get you to buy stuff you don't need. And we just don't want to be spending a lot of money. So it's I know, ladies, you love to go to Target and just look around and throw some stuff in your cart. I don't think it's a great attitude towards money as Christians in the context we live, again, especially again with the reality of the poor. And I know it's not just for ladies. As a dude, the first big purchase I had when I was in high school was this sound system for my Jeep, and I ended up getting two 12-inch subs and a 1200 watt amp, and it was I went in there and okay, what about this? And the next thing I got upsold $800. We can do it too when you're going into the whatever, Cabela's or the sports store or whatever, the music store, whatever your thing is, hardware store. Make a list, be intentional, know what you're doing. If you see some stuff, okay, put it essentially in your physical cart instead of your digital cart. Oh, here's some other things I'm interested in. Go home, let 24 hours, 48 hours pass, and then revisit it, all right? And again, like this is all, we're trying to be mindful of the poor. We're trying to follow the gospel. We're trying to be good stewards. We're trying to set a good example. So if you want to check out some books, again, Happy Are You Poor, Father Dubay, What Your Money Means by Hanna, Habits for Holiness by Father Mark Mary by me, and just some practical things as well. Thanks for watching. You guys are great. Look forward to seeing you again next week. Remember, we are pilgrims on this earth. Somos peregrinos poco a poco, little by little. Vamos a llegar. We're going to make it. Peace.